Okay, let's jump right into this explainer and unpack some seriously fascinating source material on how successful companies manage to avoid launching products that completely miss the mark. We have all bought that highly anticipated new beverage or maybe a newly formulated cosmetic product that just tasted or felt wrong, right? Well, looking through these industry methodologies, it turns out massive flops usually happen because of a fatal flaw during product development. Today, we're going to explore the science of product sensory testing and see exactly how top brands transition from pure intuition to rock-solid data.
To get the full picture today, we're going to follow a pretty clear roadmap. First, the problem with guessing. Second, what sensory testing actually is. Third, how the process works. Fourth, sensory versus consumer testing. Fifth, the business benefits. And finally, number 6, turning that data into decisions.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the problem with guessing. So does your product truly meet consumer expectations? Honestly, it's a make or break business question. Launching a product based purely on what you assume people want, that is incredibly risky. You see, inside corporate boardrooms, it is way too easy to fall into a total echo chamber. A product development team might spend literally months creating a new flavor profile that they absolutely love, but their palate isn't necessarily the palate of their target demographic. Relying on those internal assumptions is basically gambling with your research and development budget.
And that brings us to a massive, necessary shift. We have to move away from the outdated we think approach, the one full of internal biases and boardroom guesswork. We need to swap that out for the modern gold standard, a data-driven strategy based on real consumer insights. By replacing we think with we know based on actual data, companies instantly unlock a massive competitive advantage.
Which leads us right into Section 2. What is sensory testing? By definition, product sensory testing is the process of evaluating products using the 5 senses: taste, smell, sight, touch, and hearing. And what's really striking here is the sheer physical nature of this. For fast-moving consumer goods like food, beverages, and cosmetics, that physical experience is literally what dictates a purchasing decision. A product could have the most brilliant marketing campaign in the world and beautiful packaging, but if it doesn't pass the physical test of the 5 senses the second a consumer interacts with it, you are definitely not getting a repeat purchase.
The absolute core takeaway from the material is that this methodology values real experience over mere declarations. Let's be real for a second. Humans are actually pretty terrible at predicting their own behavior. If a written survey asks you if you want a healthier, low-sugar snack, you're probably going to check yes. But if you're handed a prototype that totally lacks the sweetness and the mouthfeel you unconsciously crave, well, your immediate sensory reaction tells the real truth.
Moving right along to Section 3, how the process works.
So how exactly do we systematically capture these sensory experiences without letting bias sneak in? Well, the environment is everything. Depending on your objective, these tests can be run in highly controlled lab environments or right inside consumers' homes to see how a product fits into their actual daily lives. Labs are incredibly precise. You can perfectly control the lighting, the temperature of the room, and the exact serving size to isolate one specific variable. Natural settings, on the other hand, embrace the chaos of the real world. A natural setting test answers the ultimate question: does this product still hold up when a distracted consumer hastily prepares it in a messy kitchen on a frantic Tuesday morning?
To get there, the sources outline a pretty rigorous 6-step process. Step 1, you design the study and methodology. Step 2, you carefully define your exact target demographic. Step 3, prepare the samples with absolute consistency. Step 4, actually conduct the consumer tests. Step 5, collect all that raw data and qualitative feedback. And finally, Step 6, analyze the results to figure out exactly what the consumer's senses are screaming at you.
Just imagine getting this feedback report back on a multi-million-dollar prototype. Taste is too intense, aroma is not appealing, packaging fails to communicate quality. Ouch, right? That is a tough pill to swallow. But while it might sting the product development team in the moment, uncovering these granular sensory failures before a costly market launch absolutely saves the company from a disastrous public rollout. It gives them the exact roadmap they need for optimization. Now, let's clarify an important distinction in Section 4, sensory versus consumer testing.
It's important to understand that testing isn't just one big, broad stroke. Sensory testing strictly isolates physical perception, whereas consumer testing steps back to look at the emotional and behavioral drivers behind a purchase. They are basically 2 sides of the same coin, but they are evaluating very different things. Sensory testing is interrogating the tongue, the nose, and the skin about how the product physically performs. Consumer testing is asking the brain and the heart how the product makes them feel and whether that aligns with their lifestyle. Both are absolutely essential, and you simply cannot substitute one for the other.
All right, let's talk ROI in Section 5, the business benefits. For any founder or product manager listening, implementing this process directly pads the bottom line. First off, you get better product market fit, which inherently drives higher sales. Second, you dramatically reduce your business risk because, hey, you aren't guessing anymore. Third, you get much faster decision-making. Those endless, exhausting boardroom debates vanish when the data clearly shows what consumers prefer. Fourth, it gives your marketing team exactly what they need to highlight the strongest attributes of the product. And all of that rolls up into our final benefit, a massive competitive advantage. Finally, we arrive at the crucial last step in Section 6, turning data into decisions. This is probably the biggest takeaway from the entire explainer. The key value is not the data itself, but how effectively it is actually used. Pulling the data, that's only half the battle. Having giant spreadsheets full of tasting notes and sensory scales is completely worthless if you lack the analytical framework to translate those numbers into business strategy. The data has to tell a compelling story that your research and development team can genuinely use to iterate and improve the product. And because of this immense complexity, the sources show that companies very often utilize dedicated consulting partners to manage this entire ecosystem. We're talking about selecting the exact scientific methods, coordinating the research providers, ensuring strict data quality, analyzing everything within the market context, and directly supporting R&D. Having an end-to-end partner guarantees that the brilliant insights you uncover don't just sit in a drawer somewhere, but actually make it into the final product formulation. So I'll leave you with this final, pivotal question to consider for your own business ventures. Are you building your products on intuition or real user experiences? The next time you grab a snack or a beverage that just feels perfectly engineered for your tastes, remember the rigorous data-driven sensory testing that went into it behind the scenes. Thanks so much for unpacking this explainer with me today, and keep looking for the real data behind the products you love.